Hello, everyone, and welcome to this edition of Inside the Investigation. Today, we are looking at the death of Carrie Singer out of Isle of Wight County, found dead July 1st, 2004. First, I want to give you some background from a reporter who worked here at Wavy TV 10, Leon Moore. Take a look.
Isle of Wight County investigators worked into the night, trying to find out how a woman's partially nude body ended up in a wooded area of the county.
Appeared to have been there probably 2 days and with no identification.
Sheriff Phelps says an autopsy performed today at the medical examiner's office in Norfolk revealed the body is that of a white female in her late 20s or early 30s. She's 5'4" tall and weighs 180 pounds. Has blonde or light brown hair with highlights and the name Kathy tattooed on her left ankle. The woman also has this tattoo on the small of her back. It's a daisy with a green stem and purple petals with a yellow center. Phelps says the autopsy also revealed the woman was beaten to death and she had been dead less than 2 days.
There appeared to be some head injury. We're not sure whether that actually occurred in an altercation or what.
Former Sheriff Charles Phelps, head injury. You saw the tattoos. To talk about the Carrie Singer death is Captain Tommy Potter from Isle of Wight County. Old friend, huh?
Old friend.
Yeah. Thanks for coming back with us to talk about this. First of all, what can you tell us about what happened to Carrie Singer inside the investigation?
So we know Carrie died from blunt force trauma to the head. Her body was found off Blunt's Corner Road in Isle of Wight County, which is a little northwest of the town of Smithfield. A farmer was going out there to check his field, and he noticed something in the edge of the field, and he drove over there. And unfortunately, he discovered a partially nude body of a female. She was nude from the waist down. She had on a green T-shirt, some ankle socks. And she appeared to have been in that field for a couple of days. The elements, the animals, the weather, they had taken its toll on Carrie's body.
Now, was she shot?
So the medical examiner later determined that she died as a result of the blunt force trauma to the head. She had been struck multiple times in the head by a large object.
What do the lab results show? I know I was reading some background on this and there were some lab results. Did that lead you anywhere?
So with Carrie's case, we were able to recover initially in 2004, they recovered a single DNA profile off of the breast area off of Carrie's body. Remember in 2004, technology that law enforcement was using, especially DNA, was really at its infancy stages. There was, so we did. There wasn't much else they recovered. Again, her body had been there for a couple of days. The elements, the wildlife in that area had destroyed our crime scene and our ability or their ability back then to collect the evidence.
In the first 3 hours of the investigation of this, what were you able to gather that was really important from forensic type?
Right. So we, the investigators back in 2004, and one of the things that helped us with the investigation today is that when we re-looked at this case in 2017, we still had investigators that worked this case in 2004 that were still with the sheriff's office in 2017. So while I did not have fresh eyes on the case in 2004, when I was tasked to look at this cold case again, even before that, 2017, when we really put the spotlight on the show with the television show, The Killing Fields, we had been looking at this case for a number of years before that. But being able to draw on the wealth and knowledge of those investigators that were there in 2004 really helped us later on to understand what was going on.
What were the major seismic shifts from 2004 to the year you're talking
so
about?
We're talking
what really changed?
So technology was the big thing that changed. There are processes out there that we were able to take the few items of clothing that we recovered off Carrie's body that really in 2004 weren't able to be tested for DNA. If they saw a blood spatter, they saw something on the clothes, then that area could be swabbed. But if someone had touched and there was sweat on there, 2004, they weren't really able to extract that DNA. When we took a second look at this case years later, technology existed that allowed us to extract more DNA samples off her clothing, and to compare those with the original set of DNA. And we discovered, when we began to take a second look at this, we can talk more about this later, but we discovered a second solid DNA profile that matched several locations on different articles of Carrie's clothing.
Okay, well, let's talk about that.
Sure.
Go ahead.
So yeah, so we later on in this investigation, we, through our cooperation with Discovery Channel and the TV show Killing Fields, we were made available with some funds that we really, as a small agency, couldn't afford. And so we worked it out with the Virginia Department of Forensic Science to utilize a forensic lab in Florida, a group called DNA Internationals. And to basically put it in layman's terms, they have a super-powered wet vacuum that will, through their processes, vacuum up DNA profiles, run it through a filter, and then test that filter and look for DNA.
What did it show?
They found DNA profiles. They found a DNA profile that was the same. When we found Carrie's body, her shirt and her undergarments were pulled up to her neck. We found the same profile on her bra, and we found the same profile on the edge of her shirt.
So what does that tell us?
That tells us that someone at some point removed Carrie's clothing. That's a profile that we did not have in 2004. We had a profile off her swab of her breast, but we did not have the profile off her clothing until the last several years.
Was there any evidence of a sexual assault?
We were not able to determine, based on the condition of the body, if there were any evidence of a sexual assault.
So in the totality of the investigation, the fact that you have that evidence taken off her clothes, how does that get us to the finish line?
So it gives us something else to search for, right? Do we have someone else out there involved in this case that we haven't looked at? From 2004, they had a suspect. Carrie's boyfriend, Robert DeZern, was a suspect in this case. On again, off again suspect. Let's put it that way, right? And there were a lot of other things that came into play with Carrie's case that really made this investigation, for the original investigators in 2004, and even us later years going back, re-examining the timeline, made this case very difficult to investigate.
Captain Potter brought up the name Robert DeZern. I actually had an exclusive interview with him back in the day, and I'm going to show you that interview and let Captain Potter see it as well, and we will discuss that coming up right after this. Welcome back to Inside the Investigation. As we've been reporting here, Carrie Singer was found murdered in Isle of Wight County, July 1st, 2004. 2 days later, I had an exclusive interview with the person who turned out in the beginning to be the number one suspect, her boyfriend, Robert DeZern. Here's that story from back in 2004. By all accounts, Carrie Singer lived a troubled life that ended in murder in this Isle of Wight County field. From the scars and scratches and bruises and bite marks, it appears Singer also had a stormy relationship with her boyfriend of 2 years, Robert DeZern.
I grabbed her and I held her down on the carpet, and that's when she started picking up pieces of broken plates and stabbing me in the face with them.
That's right there.
Right there, right here.
After the fight Tuesday night, Singer breaks this pottery, holding dirt, and then leaves. She returns to the house Wednesday after DeZern has gone to work.
I started calling T-Mobile trying to see when she made calls on her phone, and there were no calls made after 1:58. And that call was to me at the shipyard at Metro in Norfolk.
Singer also finds out Wednesday there's a warrant filed by Hampton Police for her arrest for maiming DeZern during a previous violent fight. DeZern calls a cab to take Singer to the Hampton court.
Where did you think she was going?
She was running. She was going to be locked up again. She did not want to be locked back up.
Instead of going to court, though, Singer redirects the cab driver to take her to this Money Mart on Jefferson Avenue. The Money Mart right there refused to cash Carrie's check, so she gets back into the cab and she starts coming down Jefferson Avenue. The cab brings her to this spot right here and leaves her right over there at the 7-Eleven. She gets out, the cab leaves, and that is the last known time that Carrie Singer is seen alive. That's Wednesday afternoon. Thursday night at 5:58, Singer's half-clothed body found in Isle of Wight County. Police questioned DeZern, who says he was also given a lie detector test. The cuts, the bruises, the stormy relationship. DeZern says police questioned him intensely.
Did you have anything to do with her death?
No, I did not.
Nothing at all.
Nothing at all.
Who would have done this to her?
Somebody on the street, man. It was not me.
DeZern says Singer left a goodbye note for him and that it hinted of suicide. But what happened to Singer sometime between 2 p.m. Wednesday and 6 p.m. Thursday wasn't suicide, it was murder. In Hampton, Andy Fox, Wavy News 10. Oof. Captain Tommy Potter, what'd you think about that?
That matches up with the investigation. That's Robert DeZern. That's what the investigators in 2004 knew. That's what we confirmed when we started looking at this case several years later. That Carrie met Robert when they were in Jacksonville, Florida. Robert was working for a shipyard in Jacksonville. They moved up here about 4 months prior to her death, and they moved to the house there in Hampton. And by all accounts, they had a very rocky relationship. It was, you can describe it as a love-hate relationship. And so there was some domestic issues that the Hampton police had responded to. And we know the incident that you're in this tape here, that yes, Carrie did a number on Bobby.
Yeah. Now, because of the volatile relationship, did that make him, in the early stages of this, your number one suspect?
He was. In 2004, I would have to say that Robert DeZern was not on the radar, but he was at the center of the radar. Robert was the guy that we felt, investigators felt, that had committed this homicide.
When did he not become a suspect?
Well, so Robert early on agreed to take a polygraph. And so in the hours after Carrie's body was discovered and investigators went to the house and began to interview him, he took a polygraph. There was some question about the legitimacy of the polygraph because of the number of hours that Robert had been up and been awake and what kind of mental and physical condition he was in when he took it. But according to the records, he passed that polygraph with flying colors. There was also that we do know, as you shared in this piece, that Carrie was at the check cashing place. Carrie was at 7-Eleven. We know that Carrie was last seen leaving the residence, getting into a cab, and even fast forward to when we really shed a light on this case in 2017, we know that she got into that cab. We talked to that cab driver, and she had a blue duffel bag with her. We know that she was at what was the King James Motel in Newport News at the time. Investigators went there and they discovered her blue book bag in a room. And according to the clerk, she had checked in just hours before.
Now, when you said he passed the polygraph, I'm reminded of Alan Wilmer Sr., right? Passed the polygraph, ended up being connected to the Colonial Parkway murders. Now, you were going to go and talk to him again. You were going to talk to him, Captain, again. What happened?
So when we received the charge from Sheriff Marshall to look into these cases, myself and now retired Captain Rick Gaddis went to interview Robert DeZern. We knocked on Robert's door. Remember, Robert's the key to this investigation. We knocked on his door and we got no answer. And the neighbor came out and asked if we were looking for Bobby. And we told her we were. And he told us that he had died 3 days later. 3 days earlier. He had a tragic accident. He was... Ironically, he was changing a light bulb in the house and fell off the ladder. And as a result of those injuries, he died.
Did he take secrets to the grave?
From the bottom of my heart, I think Robert DeZern took secrets to the grave.
Did he look guilty in that interview I did with him? Did he do anything body language?
Body language tells a lot, right? When you
Not looking at
somebody in the eye, you won't directly answer the questions. You asked in that piece, and I picked up on it when we watched it, who do you think, you didn't do it, who do you think did it? Someone who doesn't know, I don't know. I didn't do it, and I have no clue. But for him to say, sheepishly look down and to say somebody on the streets, is he deflecting something he knows? Unfortunately, because of his death, we'll never know that. We will never be able to. We've interviewed dozens of people that were associated with this case that knew Carrie and knew Robert DeZern when they lived in Hampton. But the one person that we need to re-interview that we never will be able to is Robert DeZern.
Okay. You mentioned the national publicity in this case. Why did this case get such national publicity? What was it about this? And there are cases like this all across America.
You know, that's a good question. I think part of it is we had DNA evidence and we were never able to match that DNA evidence for all these years, for probably 13 years, that the profile, the original profile they developed sat in the data bank and has never been able to match in anything. So I think being able to shed light on that to hopefully match that with DNA really being in the forefront of investigations now helped.
Right. And what about Robert Dezern? Was there any match with DNA there? Obviously not, or else you would have arrested him.
Robert never was not a match to the original profile we developed, nor was Robert a match to the second profile that we developed in 2017. Again,
So even though he had died 3 days earlier,
Robert had given us.
do you think that interview with him would have led somewhere?
Andy, I can't answer that until I'm sitting across from a table like I am with you and having a conversation and reading body language and re-asking questions that were asked in 2004 to see if his answers were the same. 2004 to 2013, people's heart and mindset changes. So I can't answer that.
Okay.
I wish I'd have had that opportunity, though.
All right, Captain, thanks. We're going to have one more segment coming up, and we're going to talk about the difficulties of this case and also the national attention this case got. And I'm also going to talk about this. What is this? I'll have that coming up right after this. Welcome back, everyone. Back here with Captain Tommy Potter from Isle of Wight County Sheriff's Office. And we're going to show you some video from back in the day, and I want you to kind of narrate what we're looking at.
So this is the entrance to the field off Blunt's Corner Road where Carrie's body was discovered. This is the crime scene unit back in 2004 attached to the sheriff's office. These are Sheriff Phelps in the brown shirt and other investigators who are out there. We're looking, examining the body, trying to determine if there's any evidence there in the field to recover.
Looks like almost in the brush, but not quite.
Not quite. It
Still
was
left exposed for people to find.
still left exposed in the edge of the field. And if it hadn't have been for the farmer going out there to check some conditions of the ground and the crops, her body probably would have been out there for a number of days, if not weeks, before it was discovered.
Yeah, and they
Which also very important. It leads me to the person involved with her death would have to know about this field. So that's always brought us to what is the connection to Isle of Wight County. If Carrie was killed in Newport News or Hampton or anywhere else, why was her body specifically dumped in this field off of Blunt's Corner Road? This is not a heavily traveled area of the county.
right, someone who's familiar with the
Someone's
area.
very
did it.
familiar
So
with the
did-
area.
And
that
were
was
people interviewed
And
in
so
the
that
area.
was a part of our latter part, if you want to call it the cold case investigation, that we interviewed homeowners, we interviewed the owner of this farm, we interviewed anybody that we could determine was connected to this field in this area in 2004.
Right, but it was also very clear to me that this was an open field. They drove the car up, they dumped the body, they got back in the car, and they
They
left.
left. But where this field's located,
How far off of that is the major road?
this is a secondary isolated road in Isle of Wight County. This is several miles off a major road. But you could drive in this field and do exactly what you told me at 1 o'clock in the afternoon, and no one would notice you.
Got it. Okay, let's turn our attention now to Project Cold Case, Inc., out of Jacksonville, Florida. Tell me about that.
So Project Cold Case is an organization that Carrie Singer's mother, Miss Patty Lord, was involved with. And I'm not sure today if she still is involved with this organization, but they're a nonprofit. And their number one goal is to make sure that victims of cold cases are never forgotten. And so they take leads and other information that investigators develop, and then they push it out nationally on their website. Again, hoping to that something that they might put on there, develop information.
I'm showing this right here. Take a look at that. And one thing that did come out with the Project Cold Case is something you're going to show us, and the captain's going to hold it up right here, because what is this?
So Project Cold Case highlighted this Parabon snapshot. It's a DNA composite image, and a little bit about what happened and how we got to this so that Project Cold Case could highlight this for us. Remember, Andy, I told you in the second investigation, we recovered a DNA profile off the clothing of Carrie that we didn't have in 2004. So we took that profile and we utilized a
You're going
private
to keep
company.
talking. I'm going to hold it up so the people
We
here
utilized
can
a
see.
private company called Parabon to develop a likely composite of what the contributor of that DNA profile looked like. Now, here's how I can explain.
Are
it
we
to you.
saying that the suspect looks
We are
like
saying that
this?
for years we thought Robert DeZern was our suspect. Maybe we thought a white male was our suspect. Based on that profile, the contributor of that DNA is from a South American or Central American descent. That individual has dark complected skin. That individual has dark brown eyes. That individual has dark brown or black hair. So the best way I can explain that to you, Andy, when you go home this evening, you're going to have a nice cake sitting on the counter of your house, and you walk in and go, man, that's a chocolate cake. That looks good, right? That's what the DNA profile says. We have a DNA profile. But Parabon breaks it down to say, Andy, your chocolate cake has vanilla icing. Has chocolate icing. It has white cake. It has made up with sugar and baking soda and eggs. Parabon breaks down the DNA profile to say the elements of that profile, that contributor is 60% likely to have blue eyes, or in our case, brown eyes. That
It
contributor
looks Hispanic.
looks Hispanic. That contributor may or may not have freckles. That contributor, and then
Does it even go so far as to tell you what his hair would look like, or is that just
no,
kind
they
of
will tell us the
hit and
color.
miss?
No, they tell us the color of his hair. So we know based on the DNA profile that off of Carrie's clothing, that our subject does not have blue eyes. Our subject does not have green eyes. Our subject does not have blonde hair, does not have red hair. So all of those things, when you dig into the genetics of the DNA profile, we're able to determine
Fascinating.
that. Parabon is also able to age progress. They're able to say at the time, this is probably what this person looked like in 2004. And then they are able to age progress it all the way to, in our case, up to 2017.
Okay, and in all the investigation dating back to the time she was killed, did you ever have a suspect that looked like this?
No, we did not. Again, this is why
Let's
the
say you did
changing-
have this back then. How
this
would that
would
have changed the
this would have
investigation?
saved us hours and not having to interview some of the people
Discerned.
discerned.
Yeah.
A landlord associated with this, some other people, we would have been able to exclude them based on the DNA profile. And again, this shows how, listen, cold cases are hard enough to investigate because often you're having to go back and recreate somebody else's work. You're able to go back and read notes and logs and narratives to get in the head of somebody else. This is why technology and law enforcement embracing the changes in technology is extremely important, not only in cold cases, but any investigation, because oftentimes it's these things that we learn when we do old-fashioned police work, go out and knock on doors, talk to people, get in the community. But when we also embrace technology, that helps us further these investigations.
I'm going to put this up again. And before we run out of time, I want you to tell what number you want people to call if they know anything about this.
If you know anything
or
about-
seen anyone that looks like this.
And you can Google Isle of Wight County, Parabon, Carrie Singer, and the color images of this composite comes up. But if you know anything about this case, 188 lock you up, or reach out to p3tips.com.
Fascinating. Captain Tommy Potter talking about the case of Carrie Singer. And I just want to thank you for coming in.
Thank you, Andy.
And I
Thank
hope
you.
that somehow this podcast helps you accomplish what you want to accomplish in this. And that is for a suspect, perhaps this comes.
There's somebody out there that-
Find what are the chances this case gets solved?
I hope this case gets solved. Every day, every week that we don't advance this case, it becomes extremely unlikely, unfortunately, that we solve this case, which is extremely heartbroken scenario for Carrie's mother. Again, just like in the case we highlighted last week in Tori Anderson, it's a promise that I made to Patty Lord and her family, and now her new granddaughter, right, and her grandson, that Carrie will never be forgotten. And we'll continue to work on this case thanks to podcasts like this. We'll continue to highlight these cases and hoping that something, no matter how small, comes forward that we can advance this case.
Will you come back and visit us here?
Anytime you ask me, we'll be here.
I had a feeling you'd say that.
So thank you for your partnership.
Captain Tommy Potter, thank you for coming in from Isle of Wight County Sheriff's Office. We are old friends, and thank you so much for spending time with us. And we hope that whatever happened here helps you find
Well,
the
Andy, I promise
person.
you, if whatever we do
give
here
us a call
today
first?
helps you, you will get an exclusive on this one. I promise you. Something
Just like
that-
Discern.
something that turns out when either one this case with Tori Anderson, you won't be the first, but you might be the second person I call.
Okay, very good. Captain, thank you so much.
Thank
and
you, Andy.
thank you again for watching this recent edition, the current edition of Inside the Investigation. And I'm going to see you down the road with another edition coming up in a couple of weeks. I'm Andy Fox, 10 on your side.